So, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon. How is everything? It's a long day and a long week, right? Okay. So, I invited you today to talk to you about the final exam. And if you guys have any questions, and by now you're almost finished preparing for the final exam, or perhaps halfway through, you must have questions because having questions is always nice. I mean, it can indicate that you guys are going out of your way and you're studying and preparing and everything in between. But I'm hopeful that you're full of questions today because, again, we're not here to kind of revisit what we've been talking about for the past 4 months. Obviously, it's a physical impossibility. Let's make it easy on each other by you coming and asking the right questions and me trying to answer them to the best of my knowledge and to the best of my ability. Before we proceed, I would like to talk about the final exam in terms of material. Typically, everything is with us. The things that we have done um, prior to the midterm and that were included in the midterm and the things that we're doing or what that we did after the midterm, which means that we have the two picture books and we also have the two novels. All of them are with us and all of them are at rest and covered in the final exam. Let me talk about the format and the types of questions. The format is pretty much the same, where you have like three sections. There used to be two, perhaps, in the midterm, and now, because of the sheer length of the semester, it makes sense that you have an added section. Um, so this is what we're having. You will have section 1, section 2, and section 3. And let's start from the end. Section 3 is obligatory. Section 3 is mandatory, where you will have a question that you have to answer. So what happens if you don't answer this question? Because obviously in section 3 you will not have options. Okay, so you will have to handle section 3. And if you have options, so you're going to choose um, to do section 3. So section 3 is not negotiable. You'll have to do, and it's going to be perhaps a close reading part, and it can be also from the role of Sumner. Okay, so let's go back to the order of the sections. You have section 1, which is normally the short answers section, right? You normally have 3 short answer questions and you answer 2. And again, from within the range of 75 to 100 lines. You need to be concise, you need to be to the point, you need to be relevant and clear, of course. This is the short answer section. This is section 1. And then you have section 2, where you will have 2 questions and you will answer one of them. You will have the choice to answer one of them. And then you move on to section 3. Like I said, it's mandatory. You will have to. In section 2, you may have a prompt I mean, the choice between obviously a prompt and a picture. So you will have to choose one of them. Section 3, like I said, is mandatory and most likely it can be close reading. Obviously, the focus would be on the role of thunder. So this is as far as the format and the kind of questions are concerned. Again, with short answers, we're not asking for full-fledged essays, but we're asking for something comprehensive with something academic. Remember, you have to provide examples, you have to unpack the concept or the idea. You need to develop the ideas. Short answers do not mean that you provide us with raw material or points. No, you develop an argument and an idea, provided that it is a mini essay, not a full essay, not a full-fledged essay. With the second part and the third part, or the second section and the third section, you have to write full essays, essays that make sense, essays that have clear introductions and then development of ideas, and then you conclude, typically. Again, you need to provide examples. Yeah, I think I'm recording.
You are,
Yeah,
Doctor.
yes, I am. Um, so this is basically how the exam will run. It's for how many hours? 3 hours, right? Yeah, 3 hours. And obviously 3 hours is something. I mean, people travel to China and perhaps come back and in 3 hours. No, for some exaggerating, of course. What I'm trying to say is that 3 hours is something big. You can do everything in 3 hours. You wouldn't need 3 hours even. So enough time for people to think deeply, to collect their thoughts, and then proceed with the different questions. Um, there is no such thing as I don't know. You're not a football player, and sometimes it's not your day. No, these are exams. You've been working so hard. You've been, putting up tremendous efforts, and it's pay off. It's payoff day. Okay, so you need to remember that whatever you will see in the exam is something that we spoke about in one way or another. So the idea that you don't understand the question or um, you didn't study this or that part, no, you have done everything already. And keep calm. Yeah, yeah. I think you'll do a good job, inshallah, like you always do. طيب, let's now move to the material itself and see whether you guys have any questions. And perhaps, for the sake of organization, let's agree on something and then we hit it and then we finish it and then move on to something else. So perhaps let's start with the picture books and then make the transition to the other parts of the material. So I'm not going to differentiate today between the two uh, picture books. So if you have any questions on one of them or any of them, just come and ask. Mm. Yeah, Noor, go ahead.
Yes, Doctor, please. In Role of the Thunder, there is this statement: racism was institutionalized. So, can you please tell me more about this?
Yeah, we agreed that we're starting with the pictured books, so that's fine. When I say that something is institutionalized, I mean it's structural. It's part of it's something, it's not incidental or individualistic. It's not that somebody is doing it because he has attitudes or negative attitudes towards black people, for example. No. Institutionalized means that even in the choice of in recruiting people, they have this, so whether you're black or white. At one point over there, they used to have special churches for for the black community. So institutionalized is something that the government, perhaps the government doesn't do, but it stays silent on what people do and what negative people are doing. So this is called institutionalized. You see it in the institution and there, and it's normally hidden because obviously in any constitution in the world you see that people have equal rights, people have equal opportunities, but yani on the ground this is a totally different story. So was racism until perhaps the 50s institutionalized in the USA? Absolutely. Again, you need to remember that people of color used to have their own transportation. They used to have their own churches, their own universities, and these are all institutions of the government. If the government does not interfere and close those things, it means that it accepts them. See? So this is what we mean by عنصرية مؤسسية, not individualistic. It's not a separate incident and that's it. No, you see it happening every day in the different يعني parts of that part of the world. So let me ask you again. So can you see this happening in the role of thunder? Do we have this institutionalized segregation and discrimination and racism? Can you give me examples of that? Yeah, perhaps you need to answer the question. The first question would be whether you think whatever microaggression that was happening against the blacks, was it individualistic? Were they separate incidents, or you think that this was done on a large scale? So if it's done on a large scale, you would ask, where is the government from whatever is happening? So was it separate incidents, or you think that it was done, whatever oppression, whatever the injustice, do you think it was, or these were separate incidents, or part of a,
Doctor,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
the church, when they went to church, it was all black, and the school, also the kids were all black.
And
But there's
our question, Senur, is that correct? Is that
uh,
correct that Muslims would have their own, and I'm talking in general terms, that Muslims would have their clubs and that whites would have their own clubs and blacks would have their own, those guys would have their own schools. And do you think this is healthy in in a diversified society, or a society that claims that it thrives in diversity? Do you think this is right and healthy?
Of course, it's not healthy, all right.
Mm.
But back then it was normal. So, but there is something in the novel about when they went to the shop, they didn't get their what they need first, but they enter the same shop,
Yeah, they
black
entered
and
the
white.
shop that they didn't get what they wanted, right? Obviously, they
Yeah,
cannot
yeah,
go and report the grocer or I mean, the shopkeeper to the police, right?
yeah. And for
If
the
it's,
bank also,
yes, and I'm
they
trying to
they
say that if you can report that to a higher authority and they give you your rights, so this is not institutionalized. But could they dare and go and complain about it?
No, I think because it was it's their first attempt to have their freedom. They were
And
new.
I'm saying, yeah, you asked a very brilliant question, and I'm trying to kind of deconstruct the scene so that I give you a sense of what was happening, and you decide for yourself whether it was
Okay.
institutionalized or not. If it is not it's institutionalized, it means that those who are doing something wrong are breaking the law, and you can hold them responsible for that. Can you hold them responsible for that? If they don't give you, you go and you have money, for example, in a store, and you have the money, right? And you want to buy something, and they say, no, we don't have it. And you see with your eyes that they have the thing. Can you report them to the police? The answer is no. This is institutionalized racism. You apply that to in the bank services and on all the other active social activities over there.
But the lawyer came in many incidents, and he shows his disagreement of what is
Absolutely, but
happening.
he's only one individual. I mean, in a sea of white
Yes,
people who are condoning and promoting and accepting that, right?
right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Questions? Think, or perhaps write down notes and ask. Hmm. Right. Let's take them one at a time. Again, let's start with Voices in the Park because you guys will like it. Voices in the Park. Try to brainstorm and think. Voices in the Park. Think of the ideas that we've been talking about, whether on the technical level or on the thematic level. Try to brainstorm for a couple of minutes, and I'm sure you can come up with questions. Voices in the Park, everyone. Remember what the ideas that we have raised in Voices in the Park? What's the framework that we're working under and within? Is it a modernist piece of work or a postmodern piece of work? And what are the manifestations if it's modern or postmodern? What do you think? Is it modern or postmodern? When you see four voices, four narrators, is this normal, unusual? Are we familiar with that? Have we seen that before?
No, it was something
Yeah,
that was new.
yeah, you're right.
They're
It's
often
so it's
non-linear.
not even so it's not even modern, right? You
Yes, it's
normally
postmodern.
it's postmodern. So in this sense, it's postmodern. What other signs of postmodernity do we have in voices?
Non-linear.
Yeah, the fact that the narrative is non-linear, whatever that means. Yeah, Sufan.
Are you asking me to explain?
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
that each and every single character are living the same situation, and the timeline, the first character is introduced, and then we see the whole situation with the first character, and then it takes us to another character, and we go back in time to the beginning of that event. So the time is not going forward. We're constantly being brought back and forth in the sequence of events.
Okay. So non-linearity is a function of the postmodern, and it is very much there in Voices in the Park. You have a multiplicity of narrators, which is also something that we're not too familiar with, as you know, we're the byproducts of the pre-modern and the modern age, right? Or perhaps this is what our training has always been. What else hits us as strange?
Inter intertextuality,
Yeah,
which is
the
something
I
you've highlighted greatly.
yes. And what is even more, because you can see intertextuality happening everywhere. And again, you bring your own learning and your own background, and you can even create your intertextuality within any text. What is even more interesting is this idea of visual intertextuality. We're not referencing books or poems and epics and full stop. We're also referencing um, paintings, clips and pictures from movies, right? So
Yes.
this is quite new, right? Um, yeah. So the overall framework that we're working within in Voices in the Park is postmodernity with its different facets and manifestations. And also under postmodern, like you rightly said, Yasufana, we have intertextuality. Um, we have the big idea of anthropomorphism, remember? Um, Also the fact that we're having, a certain kind of animal, of all the animals. It's also very significant. We also spoke about this generational gap that we have between the old generation and the young generation. There is always this kind of clash of ideas, right? The old generation is normally presented as domineering and not wanting to let go, and the young generation is presented as perhaps rebellious, except for Charlie. Um, so we have this kind of clash, which we have seen also in Tom's Midnight Garden.
Also, the idea of classism and gender roles.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Let me
Yes.
finish this idea of generational gaps first. So it does exist. And again, this idea of reversal roles, whether we're talking about gender or whether we're talking if we're talking about the generations. Reversal roles when it comes to generations would mean that old people, mature individuals would be expected to be mature to have wisdom and everything. And the young generation is normally seen and perceived as less mature, less calculating, less prudent. And obviously, we're not seeing this happening in Voices in the Park. Look at the girl, for example. So, to our our total traditional, you know, um, conception of how a girl should act and behave, she's a total revolutionary when it comes to how she handles her dad's feelings of despondency and frustration, how she stands up against the old the woman, this aristocratic lady. Um, Obviously, she's pulling the shots, if you like. She is the one who initiates the conversation with Charles. She's the one who offers to kind of play with him and perhaps teach him a trick or two, right? So this is not very, kind of expected of a girl or of a woman for that matter, according to our training and our learned sensibilities, if you like. Again, she is also young, and again, you would expect um, then generation to be less mature, to be less wise, but this is obviously not happening with her. She's very wise. She knows when, I mean, she's obviously a good judge of characters, and this is something that you expect of old people. Look at the old people. They have their own issues. One of them is very snobbish, is very proud of herself, and the other is very desperate, out of work, and he is making a career out of it, being out of work. Very sad, very subdued, right? This is something that you don't expect of a man in the literature that we're trained again to tackle and deal with. So total reversal of roles, if you ask me, right? What else about voices in the park? Again, the dynamics are very important. I mean, the relationships, and the old generation and the young generation, and what comes out of this relationship, the insights that we get, that we take away, having those people pitted against each other, the young generation and the old generation, right? What else about voices in the park? What do you have to say about the fonts, for example, how things are written and how this is revelatory of the kinds of characters that we're introduced to, the kind of moods that they have, the kinds or the kind of personality that they have. What did we say about Smudge's font, for example? And if you compare that to Charles, if you compare that to the mother, what did we say about the handwriting and the font of the mother? Yeah, does it indicate and suggest Formality? Absolutely. Can you tell that she is refined? Absolutely. Right?
Yes,
Look
and they
at,
also said it's in Times New Roman font
yeah, which is
for the mother.
obviously standard, that this is the standard. Whenever you write, and this is actually the default font, right? Even if you don't choose it, you see the system using it as default, and then you decide, right? So obviously the woman
Yes,
is using standard fonts, typical of society and how it is structured. You have standards, and then you have people like Smudge flouting and breaking the standard for obviously for good reasons. So even the font tells you that there is a clash or a conflict, a clash of ideas, a clash of moods and attitudes and understandings, right? Very vibrant piece of work. You know, from afar, when you look from a distance, it doesn't look that it has all those beautiful ideas, but the more or the deeper you delve, the more the ideas. And this is obviously the mark of good literature. It doesn't give or lend itself to easy interpretation. But once you start the interpretation, you come up with so many ideas. Okay, let's move to the second one, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. And I don't want you to answer yet. I want you to brainstorm ideas for yourself. I mean, try to come up with as many ideas as you possibly can. Remind yourself of what happened and why and everything. And let's talk about it in a minute from now. And I'll even brainstorm myself. Yeah. You guys have a minute to brainstorm the tale of Peter Rabbit. Okay, I'm ready if you guys have insights. The fellow Peter Rabbit. Obviously, it's full of binaries to start with, dichotomies. You know, if you have this mindset, you always think of things in terms of zero and one, black and white, curious, revolutionary, a transgressor against the law, and conforming and stuff like that. So, are you looking at it from those lens, this binary mindset that we're perhaps plagued with? Okay, let's talk about that hello Peter Rabbit. What comes to your mind?
We mentioned moral ambiguity.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, moral ambiguity.
Man versus nature.
Man versus I don't yes, yeah, Peter is man, yes. Versus nature. You
Because
mean
we
no,
kind of mentioned the idea of colonism.
Mr. Magruger would be man, right?
Yes.
And nature would be the total sum of its elements, and obviously the bunnies are part of nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Obedience versus curiosity.
yeah, that too. I mean, I wouldn't call it uh, obedience. Yeah, on this level, I will call it
Or
obedience,
rebelliousness.
but I would call it perhaps um, conformity. But
Mm.
conformity comes with age. Yeah, as you mature,
Yes, yes.
it's you know, obedience or the lack thereof if you're a child, right? Because you're not
Yes.
thinking about it. When you give it some thought and you start to kind of filter things using your own mind, when you grow up, it becomes political and it changes into conformity, right? So yes, at one point it would be, is it curiosity that has pushed the boy to do what he did, or is it perhaps this is a streak, I mean, a streak in his character. He is a natural born rebel, if you like, right? Or revolutionary. Again, are we, you know, taking stuff out of its, we're exaggerating it? Yeah, perhaps it depends on how you see things, of course. Again, I'm stressing the fact that we're locked in this binary mindset. We don't look at life يعني as if it's a spectrum or a quantum. We look at it through this extreme any lens. You're either a saint or a sinner, a curious individual or a rebel or a revolutionary. Okay. Hey, what else? How about the gender roles? How do you see the gender roles enacted? Are they typical or atypical? Atypical is the opposite of typical. What do you think of the girls and how they act and behave?
As you've
The,
mentioned, they
Roles
have
are
the aspect of conformity.
yeah, and they are very obedient, overly obedient, obviously, right? And perhaps being overly obedient would shed more light on the character. They are Peter's foil, you know. And, a foil in literature would be a character who is the complete opposite of another character. You have this foil character in order for you to see the other character in bigger terms, perhaps clearly or more clearly. Um,
How the
so
pictures kind of soften the blow of the text
yeah,
in an
again,
aspect.
the functionality of the pictures and where the characters are, how big or small they are, their centrality or the lack thereof, right? Yeah, absolutely. The use of colors.
Yes, the picture book codes.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we talk about picture books, we're talking about codes that you need to crack or know how to crack. So if we're saying that this is a typical child or children's book where you are trying to teach a child a thing or two, obviously it would be a cautionary tale, right? You're cautioning your child against, transgressing against saying no. And here comes the tyranny of the yes. Okay, I mean, obviously, Peter and his ilk and other, pieces of work are challenging the tyranny of yes. So everybody's obviously saying yes, right? Everybody's saying yes. It's only the few or the selected few who say no, and obviously they have like a rationale behind saying that. But it's always uh, easier, I think, to say yes, right? Because saying yes wouldn't require a second question, why? But if you say no, people normally ask you why. So, so it's a caution retail, and in the final analysis, um, it's a caution retail against um, disobedience, transgression, right? And that would also bring us to the idea of temptation, right? Who is being tempted and how, and whether he or she succumbs to the temptation or resists it. Yeah, Dana, go ahead.
Yes, doctor. I'm sorry. It's not about answering this your question. I
That's
have a
fine.
question. It's about the ending. Peter, he is it? Does he get punished? Because this came in the midterm. Does he get punished, or like does the mother just basically teaches him a lesson?
Yeah,
And
we're answering the question. Whatever we've been saying is either helping us, coming with the conclusion that it was a punishment, or seeing it in a different light. Again, everything is valid provided that you know what you're talking about. If you think this is a cautionary tale, so whatever happened to this guy was kind of punishment for his transgression and his violation and breaking of the law. I mean, he is a law breaker, whether you like it or not. Whether for good reasons or bad ones, this is obviously the subject of another day. So if you think chamomile tea is nursing him back to health, this is a reward. If you think chamomile tea is not your idea of a good food at night, so obviously this is a punishment. Okay.
so we can say it's punishment and a lesson at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you can say that Yeah, you take yourself out of the whole equation and you say that people are polarized. And then how they are polarized, you talk about those who believe that it is a reward, and you talk about those who believe that it is a punishment.
Oh, okay.
See?
Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. So again, um, we're talking about the uh, picture book being cautionary tale. And again, cautionary tale means that that the protagonist is doing something wrong, obviously, and he's being punished for that. And there is a lesson that we take away from the whole thing. If we go along those lines, we will also talk about the idea that there is somebody is being tempted here. So what is the temptation that we're having here? The temptation to do what or not to do what? Obviously, the temptation is to do something, not to. Obviously, if you resist temptation, this is trying not to do something, right? You're resisting the urge to do something. So who is resisting what? Mm. So if somebody comes to you and say, I mean, somebody is obviously um, inviting you to his house, his or her house, and then he says that you have access to all the rooms except this room. Wouldn't that excite you? Why? Why this room? I mean, you're giving me access to all the rooms. Why not this room? And then you start to have curiosity about this room and you set your imagination free, right? And you also resist the urge to act as if you haven't heard him and then him or her, and then you go to the room and unlock it and stuff, right? So this is exactly what the mother did. She said, I mean, go and do stuff and have fun, but don't go to this guy's farm or garden." So obviously this excited him. This kind of pushed him to ask why? Why this guy? What did he do? And what is in there that she doesn't want me to? So what kind of food? If she's confining me to this kind of food here, perhaps he has better food, right? So there is a temptation here. So did he? So the urge was so overwhelming. It was a very hard test. Did he, according to our traditional thinking, did he pass the test? Did he kind of resist the temptation to go? Did he resist the urge to go or what, or not? What do you think? Did he go or he didn't go?
He did.
He did, which is obviously um, succumbing to the temptation. He couldn't resist the temptation. And who are we associating temptation with? The perennial and the archetypal tempter. And when we talk about in general, when we talk about religion, when we talk about literature in general, who is the biggest tempter? when you think whether you're talking about literature or even religion, do we have temptation situations that you're familiar with from religion, from mythology, from are you familiar with Adam and Eve and how they were tempted? Isn't that temptation? Yeah, temptation. So temptation is all over the place, obviously. Did they succumb to the temptation? Absolutely. And what happened to them?
They fell from heaven and down to
Yeah,
earth.
right, right. Yeah. Did this happen to Tom? I'm sorry, to Peter? Did he succumb to temptation? Could he resist the
Yes.
temptation? No, he didn't resist the temptation.
Yes, he succumbed to it.
Yeah. And what happened to him? So in this case, you can interpret the ending as a punishment, right? And you explain or you talk about the whole thing as a cautionary tale. If you succumb to the temptation, this is what you're getting. Chamomile tea. See? Can you establish links? Do you know how to connect things together and come up with something decent? If we talk about temptation, for example.
Yeah, and especially since all of the things that he ate were in the color red, which also signifies temptation. So this can also relate to the topic and the idea on how the image reflect the hidden meaning behind
That,
the text.
that's interesting. You're trying to say that the image consolidate the ideas and the
Yes.
concepts. Yes, absolutely. These are what or how, this is what images are for, right? They reinforce the impressions that we may get from the text itself, right? Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we talk about Tom's Midnight Garden and the Roll of Thunder, inshallah. I'll see you in 10 minutes, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, doctor.
So let's talk about Tom's Midnight Garden. Um, Lots of things, right? Very interesting. Okay, so I'll give you a minute or perhaps two because it's big and long. And I would like you to brainstorm on your own and then come back with ideas. So it's Tom's Midnight Garden, everyone. You guys have a couple of minutes for that. Now, ideas about Tom's Midnight Garden? Anyone and everyone?
It's a low fantasy novel. With one of the main aspects is the time slip, where we have two types of time, as one of the critics highlighted, which is the non-linear time, Cryos, I think that's how you say it, and the linear time, which is Chronos.
Coronas, I
I
think.
think that's
Yeah, yes. Yeah, this is an aspect among many. Okay. So obviously we talk about, central issues, central characters. So obviously the transition from the real world to the magical garden is obviously a big deal. It's very significant where you're moving from reality and then you get to the world of fantasy. You receive the fuel that you so needed, and then you go back to reality armed with, knowledge about the world, acceptance, um, reformed. You become a totally different person. So you need to look at Tom before walking into the garden and Tom after he came back, or after, obviously, the magical garden disappeared and became no more. So the garden is a metaphor for what? a metaphor for experience, obviously. Experiences that Tom wouldn't have seen or experienced had it not been for the magical garden. And again, I keep saying that you don't have to experience everything firsthand to have experience, to be hardened by reality. You can listen to other people talk about their experiences and you can learn all the same. And this is exactly what happened. So Tom didn't go through the hardships and the suffering and the agony that other characters um, did or have, like, for example, Hattie, right? He listened, he reacted to what she has been going through and that what she had gone through, and he learned a lesson or two. And when he went back to reality, the real world, he started to perhaps accept whatever he was unwilling to accept in the past. Remember how we saw them, or we saw him and his uncle and aunt at the beginning debating and locked in futile debate. Everyone is sticking to his position. His uncle and aunt are very drab. They believe in concrete reality. Time has to be this linear kind of time, no room for dream or imagination. They believe in science and physics. And obviously, Tom was a different mold. He comes from a different place in terms of mood, in terms of, outlook. It's very strange that at the end it seems that they won. They won the debate, judging from the fact that he is now accepting of the fact that Hattie is no more, that he's ready to accept the linearity of time with its eventual destination, which is obviously death. So these are issues and philosophies that the novel reveals and addresses. What else about Tom's Midnight Garden? Of all, remember, of all the times or the ages, that's the Victorian age, right? So harking back to the happy old days of the Victorian age and its ideals of perhaps conservatism, uh, education and empire, right? One of the ideas, and it's a big idea, obviously, is Hattie and her transformative role, and her instrumentality when it comes to the transformation of Tom. Had it not been for her, we wouldn't have had him reformed and transformed the way he did. And again, we spoke also about the title and how Hattie can lay claim to the title, you know, thanks to the tremendous amount of energy that she imbued the whole thing with. Remember? Again, we have generational gaps, like always. We have but we have magic realism, obviously. We have a trajectory. You can even think of the novel as a novel of education. They sometimes call it a Bildungsroman, where you have a hero who matures over the space given to him.
Can you repeat the term again, Doctor? Building what?
Bildungsroman. It's a German word.
I
Or
don't know the pronunciation of that.
I think it's. I mean, write it in any way, and it will get corrected because it's. I mean, the term is obviously all over the place. Write the novel of education or a novel of education, and then I mean, the term will appear to you. What else about Tom's Midnight Garden that I forgot? Yeah, yes.
There is an aspect where Hattie isn't completely conforming to what a lady is. She's not in the aspect of gender roles, I would say, because there's a lot of instances where she's kind of rejecting what her aunt wants to teach her to be a proper lady, but she isn't really a part of that, and Tom kind of helps her gain a bit of independence.
Yeah. You mean she's rebelling against or challenging she
Status
obviously
quo,
her,
yes.
yeah, they are trying to domesticate her, and
Yes,
she's
yes.
relentless in not accepting that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's very inspirational in every aspect. Again, she has gone through a lot, or she's perhaps presented to have gone through a lot. Again, what I perhaps don't like about some of the interpretations is the fact that she is there to help Tom transform and reform and become a totally different person. And obviously, reducing her to this um, is very, I don't know, very
Taking away from
misogynistic.
her character.
Yeah, from her womanness,
Mm.
right?
They both helped each other, I see.
Mm. Yeah, they complement each other. You may perhaps, if you want to dignify it, you would say that they complement each other. She's not only there to help him reform and transform and everything in between, right? Okay. We'll stop on this note, and we can still meet next week if you like, if we can think of something on Monday, and also through the master class. So, but let's try to make it a little earlier because by 3 or 4, I am almost, I'm normally very exhausted. So if we can think of like a 2 setup or a 1 p.m. setup, would that be fine and convenient for you on Monday?
I think for most of us, yes.
Yeah,
So
because
two,
you guys don't have any classes anymore, right?
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think 2 would be fine, right?
Which time, doctor?
Which
Because two, because on Monday in 2 p.m. we have a master class.
what kind of master class with whom?
The grammar, the course of
Okay.
grammar.
So would 1 o'clock be fine? We only need perhaps an hour.
Yes, it's okay.
How about 1 p.m. everyone? Would that be convenient? Right, let's do it at 1 o'clock, inshallah. طيب. Thank you so much, and I'll see you inshallah on Monday. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, doctor.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.